Lily Madwhip, Must Die, Chapter 18, Training Montage. I'm standing beside Duma somewhere called the Ninth Quadrant Vestibule, next to the Daedalus Chamber. I have no idea what any of that means, but this place looks kinda like the inside of an observatory. You know, those big domed rooms with all the seats, and they have a projector thingy that shines lights up at the domed ceiling and makes it look like the night sky. It's kind of like that, but without the stars and seats. Just a big, domed ceiling room tilted at a weird angle. Oh, look, the bottom of my shirt got torn on something in all the commotion back at the fairgrounds. When I tug at the flap, it tears more. I start pulling on the ripped piece, thinking it'll go around my tummy and back, but instead the rip starts traveling up my front. "What are you doing?" asks Duma, who's watching me. "Why are you ripping your clothing off?" I stop pulling on the tear with a sigh. I was trying to rip it around my middle so I could tie the scrap into a headband like Rambo. "I don't know, Rambo." "Of course you don't. He's like the toughest guy on the planet," I tell him. Duma nods. "So, he sweats a lot." "Where am I supposed to go?" Meredith asks in a slurry voice, looking around the room and up at the big domed ceiling. Duma walks over to one of the plain, empty walls. The surface of the wall is covered in smooth white tiles that run all the way up to where the ceiling starts, following the curve of the dome and back down the other side, all over the place. I wonder who tiled the top of the room. I don't think even a giraffe could reach up there with its long neck and place a tile at the tippy top. At the bottom of the wall, where it meets the floor, there's a metal handle someone must have superglued to the tiles. Dumas grabs it with one bony hand and makes a grunt of effort as he pulls up. The tiles move like they're on a track, and a whole section of the wall lifts up, revealing a dark passage. "Head this way, child," Dumas says in a hushed tone. "Remember, you are looking for Baratiel. He's the only one I'm 100% certain you can trust around here." "What about the unicorn?" she asks. He shrugs with his free shoulder. "Or the unicorn, but I'm only 95% confident about that. So, use caution." Meredith takes a few steps into the dark passage. A torch that was apparently bolted to the wall with a little metal ring suddenly catches fire just a few more steps away, lighting up the tunnel. The walls inside are chiseled stone. They look like they're crying. There's water running down from the top of the walls, even though there are no cracks or holes in the stone, except where the torch is bolted. Meredith takes the torch out of its ring, then turns to smile at me. Except she's in Mr. Jin's evil body, so it's Mr. Jin smiling at me, which makes me frown in return. Meredith sees me, frown and stops smiling, gives a little wave, and starts carefully walking down the dark corridor. After a few more steps, she starts humming something to herself. It reverberates all over the place. Duma lets go of the metal handle on the wall, and with a clattering of tiles, the doorway drops shut, and there's just a wall again. "All right," he says, turning to me. "Let's get started." I follow him as he walks to the center of the empty room and kneels down. His knees crack like an old person's. At his feet, there's another one of those metal handles. He grabs it and pulls up with another grunt. A circular section of the floor rises up with his hand, making an obnoxious grinding sound like someone dragging a boulder down the sidewalk. Once he's pulled until the top of the circle is over his head, he steps around it, rotating the whole thing, and then lets go. And it slides down about a foot, but then catches on something and stops. "What is this?" I ask Duma. "Weapons," he declares, putting both sets of fingers inside the stone and pulling apart. The column cracks open and reveals that the inside is hollow. There are all sorts of crazy metal weapons inside. Just like Dumas said, I see swords with curved blades, smaller knife things with pointy bits, and even a heavy-looking club with a big, spiked ball on the end of it. Eventually, my eye wanders over to a long, golden spear thing with a big fork on the end. Oh, that's a trident, like you see in paintings of the devil. I'm supposed to fight Samael with these? I ask with a plummeting sense of horror. I couldn't even fend off Lisa Welch with a knife. And you expect me to battle an angel with a trident? It's a cool looking trident, though, and I reach out and touch the handle. It feels warm to the touch, almost hot even. I'm gripping it before I realize what I'm doing, and next thing I know, I've stepped back with it in my hands. Suddenly, there's a voice in my head that's not my own. It sounds like a woman's voice. She's saying stuff in a language I don't know. Pretty much every language except English is a language I don't know, and even English I don't know a lot of. Duma is watching me. I must look totally spaced out to him. He crosses his arms and cracks a smirk with his jawbone. Why am I not surprised? Is this Poseidon's trident? I ask him. No, Poseidon's trident makes earthquakes in horses, he says casually, like making horses isn't one of the coolest things you could do unless you were a horse yourself. That is the Trishula of Durga, with which she slayed the demon Mahishasura. I confess, I'd much rather have a trident that makes horses, but at the moment, I'm not going to turn my nose up at a demon killing one instead. The female voice keeps saying its stuff in a weird language inside my head. I hope it's nothing too important, like instructions on how to use it to kill demons. Figure. Pointy end goes in the demon. What else is there to know? You know, I say after a thought, I can literally slice reality with my fingers. Why do I even need a weapon? Dumas leans over me and sticks his bony finger right in my face. Don't even think about tearing any more holes in the veil from inside, he snaps almost angrily. On your side. Sure, cutting a hole in the veil is harmless, because there's likely nothing but void on the other side, and no harm is done. But you slice on this inside, and who knows what you're tearing apart on the other end. You could be opening a hole right where a person is standing. But I did it before, I say meekly, hugging my demon-killing trident. Duma snorts. Yes, and I gave Pashkar one hell of a tongue-lashing for telling you to do that, believe me. We were lucky you opened a hole over the ocean and not under it. You could have drained the entire planet's oceanic ecosystem straight into the void before we patched it up. Fine. Handicap me in my moment of either greatest triumph or greatest defeat. I can't get help from Pashkar because he's off doing heck knows what on his end. I'm stuck with Duma, who got beat up by carnies back at the fair, and I can't even rip reality itself because if I do, I'll have to listen to Duma rant at me some more, even assuming I don't to drain the ocean and end life on Earth as we know it. Duma steps back. He reaches into his robe and pulls out his switchblade scythe. With a click, it extends out, forming the long handle and blade. Look. The Trishula of Durga is an excellent weapon, and it clearly spoke to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to even lift it. This is Providence. He runs his bony finger down the curve of his scythe. You still have your totem. Use it. Win each fight before it's even begun. Your gift and Shiva's blessing will save you. Are you ready? I reach down and feel Pashar the doll hooked on my belt loop. The cold plastic gives me a sense of reassurance, which is kind of like life insurance. I nod at Duma. Good, he says. Then let me give you a gift. He puts the blade of his scythe over his shoulder and proceeds to tear a strip of black cloth off the wrist of his robe. He hands the fabric to me. I stare at it. It feels a little crusty, like it could use a wash. For your bandana. The fabric is stretchy. I wrap it around the back of my head and tie a knot in it up by my forehead, then slide the whole thing around so the knot hangs out in the back with all my hair. Then comes the smell. It drifts down from the headband and settles in my nostrils. It's like someone left a head of lettuce in the fridge until it spoiled. I clench my jaw and try not to make a face. Perfect, Duma says. Just like Rambo. Just like Rambo, I parrot. Please, let's get moving. Maybe the smell will trail behind us. All right, he declares, reading my mind. Let's get moving. He shuts the stone column of weapons and lifts it up slightly, shifting it back several degrees in the opposite direction that he did before. Then lets go, and the whole thing slams down heavily with a crash into the floor. After waving away the cloud of dust it kicks up, he goes back over to the tear in the veil, leading back to the fairground, and starts doing something with his hands. I look down at the Durga trident in my hands. What were the chances we'd end up in this room with all the weapons? I say more to myself than anyone. Some stroke of luck on my part, eh? Duma presses something against the tear, and there's a springy KACHUNK sound. Part of the tear seals back up with a twisted piece of metal floating in the air where it used to be. Is he stapling the hole shut? It wasn't luck, he says over his shoulder to me. The weapon cache is at my disposal anywhere I go in the Vale. It's the sort of divine functionality that you need to start learning, Lily. You can create anything you want here. You just have to control it. If you bothered, you could be unstoppable. That's why Samael fears those like you. Those like me? He's talking about Hecate, I think. She's like me, but she's Samael's wife, or lover, or something. Ew. Why'd I think about that? Hecate and Samael kissing? Gross. Yes, please. Stop, Duma says with a bony grimace. He ka-chunks the tear one final time, leaving a sixth metal twist floating in the air, and then tucks his hand back into his robe for a moment, like he's putting away the invisible stapler. We go over to another blank wall, where there happens to be another one of those handles. Actually, two handles. Duma pulls them in opposite directions, and the tiles clickety-clack apart like a folding closet door. There's another dark tunnel on the other side. Follow me, he says, as if I wasn't already doing that, and try not to draw attention to yourself. I'm a 12-year-old girl carrying a massive trident walking with the Grim Reaper, but sure, I'll just try to be discreet. The tunnel is just more dark stonework anyway, not like we're walking through the school cafeteria. There, a torch even lit up on the wall like it did for Meredith. Duma takes it and trudges down the tunnel, his bony feet making click-clack sounds as he walks. I'm in my sneakers, which were made for sneaking when you think about their name, so I'm stealthier than he is by far. Be a ninja, Lily. That's what Pashkar would tell me. He probably knows that ninjas are made up or something, but would never tell me that, because he knows I believe in them. What would a ninja do? A ninja would sneak. After what feels like an hour of walking, but is probably more like 10 minutes, we reach a dead end. A dead end? I say. Let me guess. Another one of your magic doors? Duma turns and looks back down the passage we just came from. No, He pauses and looks back and forth between the wall and the dark tunnel. I seem to have made a wrong turn somewhere. I'm floored by this. We didn't make any turns. We've been literally walking in a straight line down this hall for like an hour. It's only been about 5 minutes. Don't be so dramatic. Yeah, well, time works differently here. Take that in your pipe and smoke it. Duma flaps his robe sleeve at me dismissively. Keep calm, he says in a snobby tone. This is just a hiccup. Something rumbles behind us. That was a mighty big hiccup, I whisper. Little rocks on the ground start to jiggle and wiggle, bouncing up and down as the whole tunnel vibrates. The flame of Duma's torch shakes as well, casting weird shadows all over the place that dance in an eerie manner. Oh dear, he says. Oh dear what? The rumbling is getting louder. It sounds like a stampede of horses. Maybe somebody else got their hands on Poseidon's trident and sent a riot of horses down the hall to trample us to death. There's a glint of something shiny reflecting our torchlight far down the tunnel. I must not have adequately sealed off the tear to your world. He makes a galump, swallowing sound like a frog. It would appear someone sent in the cleaners. The rumble turns into an earthquake. I can see them, or rather, it clearly as it gets closer. The cleaners, as Duma calls it, appears to be a giant metal ball covered with all sorts of sharp, spinning bits and pieces. It looks like something out of a science fiction nightmare, right up there with the Death Star and Maximilian from The Black Hole. What do we do? I yell over the now deafening rumbling. Dumas points at the stone wall. Forget what I said earlier. We'll have to tear the veil. You said crossing the streams was bad, Egon. I don't argue with him. The sight of the giant, spinning metal ball of dicing blades roaring toward us down the dark tunnel has me ready to wet my already damp pants. I throw my hand up, point at the top of the wall, and slice down diagonally, ripping the fabric of reality as easily as I ripped my top. A horrendous roaring sound pours out of the tear, but it's quickly drowned out by the roaring sound coming from the blender ball. I jump through without being told to. I'm floating. I can't breathe. There's no air. I'm going to die, lost in a cold emptiness. Did I open the veil straight into outer space? I'm scared to even open my eyes. I'm afraid I'll see nothing but the stars, or worse, the raging storms of Jupiter looming in front of me. Just the idea of being adrift in orbit around Jupiter scares me. Feel my body being sucked toward the gas giant, toward the screaming storms and the great red eye. Someone takes my hand. It must be Dumas. He guides my finger, even as coldness starts to feel normal, to settle in my bones, and I instinctively think of the tear, of ripping open the veil again. Get us out of here, Dumas. He pulls me, I think. It's hard to tell if you're being pulled when you're weightless. Hard ground smacks me in the face. I can breathe again. I gasp for air. I open my eyes. Where are we? I shout. My ears are ringing and my body is freezing. Dumas is next to me, already standing, or maybe never wasn't standing. He's got a hand on his hip and rubbing his chin with the top of his scythe. Well, the good news is we're back in the veil. Touch and go there. For a moment. Where were we? I ask. Outer space? I notice Durga's trident lying on the ground nearby. I must have let go of it at some point, but I don't remember. It slides over to my reaching hand and I grip it tight. The lady voice starts talking to me quietly again. She sounds reassuring. Dumas shakes his head. No, that would have killed you instantly. Someplace worse than instant death? I sit up and look around. It seems to be night. We're on an empty street. The houses all look different, like vastly different. One has parre of a pirate ship sticking out of it. Another is like a bunch of toy blocks stacked badly on top of each other. There's one that's all sleek and white and futuristic. One looks like a human-sized Smurf mushroom house. I can even hear the Smurf theme song being sung from inside. Oh, great. It's going to be stuck in my head now. La 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 la. We're in the burbs, says Dumas. Active sleepers make their dreams here. They're all inside. They never come out. The outside is purely for aesthetics. You've probably never looked out a window in your dreams. If you did, this is what you'd see. He looks up at the roaring tier above us and starts casually stapling it shut with his invisible stapler. He seems very proud of himself, like he designed this place. I came up with the design with Baradiel, he says, reading my mind yet again. I think a nasty thought at him, but he doesn't react. He laid the groundwork. One of the houses disintegrates into violet smoke. The lot is briefly empty, just a mailbox and a driveway, and then the violet smoke swirls into a new form, a more normal-looking house, and suddenly it's there, the smoke hardening into solid matter. A silhouette walks by a brightly lit window as someone goes about their dream inside. I look down the street. It seems to go on forever. So, now we're in the thick of it, right? How far to the Emerald City? There's no Emerald City, he tells me, not getting the reference. But the central nexus is accessible from anywhere, if you know how to control the essence of the veil. Stop talking puzzle talk at me, and let's just get to taking this place back from Samiel in Abaddon, okay? I stand up and clench my trident, before they realize we're here. Dumas! Well, that didn't take long. A form comes clomping down the dark street. It looks human, but the lower half is massive, like it's part bull or something, and walks with 3 tree-trunk-sized legs. The top half is hulking and swollen, with equally tree-trunky arms that swing with each step, like it has to throw its entire weight into moving. Dumas puts a hand to his forehead to shield his eyes from the street lamps. Mott, he says, is that really you, brother? Brother, the thing named Mott says, in a voice like an ogre. You call Mott brother, but where were you when Mott was torn to pieces? Well, you look like you put yourself back together, I mutter, stepping back to brace myself and holding the pointy end of the trident out toward this massive beast of a thing. Dumas extends his scythe in a similar manner. Mott, I was working on the other side when that all happened. You should lay your blame on Samael, who ruled then, not I. Mott stops under a street lamp, and I see now the true horror of his form. He's a Frankenstein-ish nightmare of human body parts stitched together with black thread. He doesn't seem to have any eyes, but his face is entirely a mouth that extends down all the way along his throat to the top of his chest. He's naked, but it doesn't matter because there's so much stitching and hair on his lower half that he could as easily be wearing a pair of pants made from shaggy dog hide. You lie! Samael saved Mott! Samael stitched Mott back, stopped Mott's suffering, raised Mott from the field of agonizing pain, and gave Mott purpose. Dumas takes a long, slow breath. And what purpose is that, Mott? Mott will swallow you, like Baal before you, and pick Mott's teeth with your ward's bones. Dumas looks at me. Are you ready for our first fight, my ward? Not really, I admit. Is this guy an angel? Not really, Dumas echoes. He's more like a god of death. Mott leans his upper torso forward, bouncing on his back 2 stump legs, and gives a bellowing roar that sounds like a lion had sex with a rhino. And this was the baby. A Rion, or maybe a Lino. He rears up for half a second, and then proceeds to swing his crazy upper tree trunks in cyclone fashion and charge at us. I swallow the lino-sized lump in my throat and grip Durga's trident like a dog, playing tug-of-war with a cord of rope. Mott can kiss Lily's ass.